Big event, Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, and his son has his son is the Chabaras official. He's the official Chabaras of that shul.
Can you imagine some people become the shliach of like Met Stadium, others have to go to like Moldova. How do you pick? How do they pick who gets
Not
to
sure which is safer.
There's more Jews watching the Patriots game or whatever he's at. The Giants game?
Giants and Jets.
Giants and the Jets.
Okay, here we go. So how come I can't find the daf over here? 1 second. Okay, here we go. So first of all, I want to announce that today's broadcast is being sponsored by Bentzi Bench, Le'ilul Nishmas, the Buffalo Rebbe, whose yahrzeit was yesterday, and his yahrzeit, and actually that's what I was listening to at 2:30 in the morning. Is Akiva's sending me the message about the sponsorship. Rabbi Elio Yosef Ben Rab Gedalia Haran Rabinowitz, who's the first Admiral buried in America. Rabbi Elio Yosef Rabinowitz is Schus Yogin Elena Val Kol Yisrael, and was also Le'il Nishmas Rachel Imenu. So I guess it's Rachel Bas Lovan, whose yahrzeit was last week. Shkoich Benzi, the Neshama should have an aliyah, and the Neshamas of Tzadikim should be a protection for us.
I just found that yesterday. That's yesterday or Friday night that a dog road cemetery is also an oil well.
Yeah, of whatever.
Taken the son or the dog.
Okay, so Schusam Yogin Aleinu Val Kol Yisrael. Yesterday we learned about the fact that if you have any psulim, you should try to avoid confrontation because that's something that they might use against you. And therefore, people who are in the positions where they can easily be confronted, like Aboy Tzedakah, we know that their yichus must be pristine, because if it wasn't, there would have been someone who's angry at them who would have already exposed that. Bas Halal Zocher. Many of the halachas that we're going to learn today are going to be things that we learned already, but today we're going to learn the reasoning behind some of the halachas that we already learned. So Bas Halal Zocher. So a Halal married a Bas Yisrael. Psula not kahuna. She's psula from kahuna. La'olam forever. Now you probably remember that we had a Rab Dostoy in the past who said that a Bas Yisrael is a mikveh tahira l'chalalim. And if a chalal marries a Bas Yisrael, the child is kosher. Clearly, this Mishnah does not hold like Rab Dostoy, because this Mishnah holds if a chalal married a Bas Yisrael, the daughter born or the son born remains with the psul of the chalal. What is the lashon of la'olam? So Rashi explains what that means. That means the first daughter in the lineage will be a halala, and she would not be able to marry a kohen. Rashi lists them off. Bas Benoy, even if they have a son, and that son has a daughter, the first daughter born in his children or grandchildren. This is a granddaughter. She is going to be psul huna, and Ubas Ben Benoy, even if he has a son who has a son, and then only the great granddaughter is a girl, then she will be also l'kuna. Atzaif kol adayros shel chalalim zachar ben zachar. No matter how many males are born, basa achroin psula. The daughter born to this yichus is going to be psula kibasa rishon, just as if the original child born between the chalal and the Bas Yisrael is also psula l'kuna.
Halal is a male.
A chalal is a male. A halala is a female.
So why is it a halal zafar? Why not just halal?
Because we're trying to, the Mishnah is going to be listing off if it's a male married to a female or vice versa.
Okay.
So I guess the Mishnah is just trying to bring abundantly
Just
clear.
exercise.
Yeah, I believe so. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Abel Bas Bita mi Yisrael, But what if it's his daughter's daughter, and the wife was a Yisrael? So you have a Chalal who married a Bas Yisrael. They have a daughter, and then that daughter married another Yisrael and had a daughter. She will be kshera. The loy chamira bas chalol mechalola. A bas chalol should be no worse than a chalola. The amrinon bita shel chalola mi Yisrael. Any chalola who marries a Yisrael, kshera lekuna. So therefore, even the chalola herself, if she marries a Yisrael, her child is kshera lekuna. So therefore, it's only the bas chalol who becomes psula lekahuna, but her daughter, meaning she married a kosher, and now they had a daughter, that will be kosher lekahuna. Yisrael shenasa chalola, but on the other side, on the flip side, if it's a Yisrael who married a chalola, bitay sheira lekahuna. A Yisrael married a chalola's daughter is not going to be puzzled. Of course, if a chalola married a kohen, so then she makes her own chalola because she did a marriage of Israel. But if she married with a marriage of Heter, she made a Yisrael, the halach is her daughter is perfectly kosher. And as Rashi says, v'taima yalaf b'gemar. The Gemara is going to explain to us what's the difference between the bas chalal, who's pasal l'kuna, and the bas chalala, who's ksher l'kuna. The daf Yisrael, and of course that's only if she married a Yisrael. Aval kohen shenasa chalala. But if this chalala married a kohen, b'tay chalala, because they made now a new set of halalas, because this is also an unsanctioned marriage. The chavlan anoidet, the vias isakahuna have a halal. Okay, now this halacha we're about to learn should sound familiar. Halal shenasa bas Yisrael b'tay psul lekahuna. Isn't this the exact same thing that the Mishnah started with? So why is the Mishnah repeating a halacha that we just learned literally a line ago? The Gemara is going to ask that question. Rabbi Yehuda says, Bas ger zachar, the daughter of a male ger, is kebas halal zachar. Is no different than the daughter of a halal, meaning she would be a surah lekahuna. Zokt Rashi, what does that mean? Vafilu mi Yisraelis. If a ger marries a regular Yisraelis, his daughter is psula lekahuna, kebas halal zachar, or psula lekahuna. Aval bas giyaris mi Yisrael. But what if a female giyaris married a Yisrael? Ksheira, that child will be ksher lekahuna. The time of the kulahani tanoi, the pligi b'giyaris mefarish b'gemara. We're going to have a lot of discussion about the psul of giyaris and how it carries on. This will all be discussed in the Gemara. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, Yisrael shenasa giyaris. If a Yisrael married a female giyaris, b'tay ksher lekahuna. The ger shenasa bas Yisrael, and a ger that married a bas Yisrael, so the opposite case, a ger shenasa shall b'tay ksher lekahuna. His daughter would be kosher lekahuna. No? Aval ger shenasa giyaris, but a ger who married a giyaris, they're b'tay psul lekahuna. So if both the mother and the father are gerim, that daughter will be pasal lekahuna. But if either one of the parents was a Yisrael, she would be kosher lekahuna. Echad ger, the echad avodah mishuchar. There's no difference in halacha between a ger and an eved mishuchar. An eved mishuchar has the same status as a ger. Afilu ad yud doiros. If a ger married a giyaris, and then that daughter married another ger, even 10 doiros later, the psul will still be there, and it will be pasal lekahuna. Until there is one mother there, that's Yisrael, that will eliminate the psul giyaris. Rabbi Yosy Omer, af ger shenasa giyaris, b'tay ksher lekahuna. Rabbi Yosy argues and holds a ger shenasa giyaris, his daughter will also be kosher lekahuna. So we have a lot of different shittas that will all be explained in the Gemara. Although the ger sugya will not be explained today, that'll be the topic of tomorrow's Gemara. Zok tehelig Gemara. Ma'ila oilam. It says bas halal zochar, psula min hakuna lo oilam. What is this lo oilam? Oh, thank you very much for the coffee. Mao the tema. I would have thought midi da hava mitri v'adoim. Maybe a ger could be no worse than a mitri and a doimi. We know mal halal la'achar shloisha doris. A mitri who married a mistress, and they continue doing so. The third door, even though there's no bas Yisrael involved, it becomes mutter. Maybe the child, even though it's a ger shenasa giyaris, will be kosher, the kahuna. Kamashalon, that it doesn't work by the same rules, and in fact, she will still be the first daughter born that does not until she marries a Yisrael will be asur l'kum. Yisrael shenasa halal, a Yisrael who married a halal. Mina hanamil. How do we know this halacha? So Yisrael that married a halala, the halacha is his daughter is ksher l'kum. How do we know that? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon, Nemer Kan. It says over here, "V'lo yichal zari be'amav." V'nemer lahalon lo yitame ba'al b'amav. When talking about hilchos kahuna, hilchos kahuna talks about the isser to be machal one zera, and there's the isser to become tummy to a mace. Malalon zecharim v'lo nikeves. Just like the rules of tumah that a kohen may not become tummy applies exclusively to a male kohen, not to a female kohen. Afkan, so too, and it says lo yichal zari zecharim v'lo nikeves. It's only zecharim, but not nikeves. As Mal alone zok Rashi, le'in tuma has zecharim huzur aleh v'lo nikeves. Nechsev b'nei aharon v'lo b'nei saharon. When he talks about tuma, af b'psulei chalolos zecharim nifsalu v'lo nikeves. Males become possible, not nikeves. Frag the Gemara, if that. So therefore, Yisrael shenosa chalola, his daughter is going to be kosher l'kahun. Maybe not, right? Because it's only for a male. So Zok to Gemara, we're just at the initial stage. It's gonna develop.
Or we're talking about the couple. In the lower marriage, what about a marriage?
So our Mishnah says the daughter is going to be puzzled. But Chalal who married a Yisraelis, the Mishnah says, not like a story, the Mishnah says the daughter would be a Chalal. So you want to know how that fits in. But the Gemara is going to vet it. So let's see what this means. Zok Gemara, if a Kohen Gadol married an almana, are you going to say his daughter is going to be muteris because the halal only applies to a male, not a female? So the Gemara is asking on your thought pattern, Moti, and the Gemara didn't make your distinction because you have no way of getting out of it by the daughter of a marriage between the Kohen Gadol and the mother. Yeah, sure. What's the difference? It passes men, not women. If there's a limud of it doesn't apply to males, just like Tumah doesn't apply to females, just like Tumah doesn't apply to females. So then the female born from a union, an illegal union of a Kohen Gadol and a should be mutter. The halal doesn't apply to females. No. Miksiv benoy zaraiksiv lo yichalal zarai ba'amav. So clearly, any zera, not only male but even female zera, becomes possible. So freik the Gemara, if that's the case, then bas benoy tishteri zokt Rashi. So the Gemara says zaraiksiv, meaning any zera, but didn't we just say that a daughter born from a chalal in Yisrael does not become possible? So Rashi says Zarai ha'av, the father, va'zera. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Zarai ksiv va'afilu nekevos. When it says Zarai, it even means to include nekevos, such as the daughter of an almona that was living with a Kohen Gadol. What about the limud that says that psulei chalalos does not apply to females? Let's say it applies to the daughter of his daughter. It goes down one generation. So his daughter could become pasul chalala, but his granddaughter, which means the daughter of his daughter, would not be able to come pasul from as a chalala. So Zok to Gemara, but bas benoy tishteri, the daughter of his son, should also be mutter and shouldn't have a psul chalala. Bas benoy Zok Rashi. Bas benoy chalal, if he has a son a chalal. So an almana lived with a Kohen Gadol. They had a son. The son becomes a chalal, and then this son has a child. Tishteri, she should be mutter to tahanale gzera shava. We have a gzera shava that says dafke psula chalalos applies to males and not to females. V'lo apikra ela zaroi. That the Torah said. That the Torah says that it applies to male and female of his children. That's dafke his children. So the Kohen Gadol who married almana, his daughter would have a psul because we have a special pasuk of Zairoi. But after that first generation, after the children of the people who did the actual Aveira, there should be no psul chalolos at all to a female. Therefore, avol zera Zairoi, anything in a later generation should not apply to females. Tikasher bin Shava. So they're a bas b'nai history, and our Mishnah says that's not the case. Zok the Gemara ksiv lo yechalel zaroi. The word zaroi itself, Rashi says, encompasses himself and his zera. Zaroi, Rashi says, av ve'azera huskuru b'tevazu. In this word, it has the motion of him himself and his children. Zar oi, his children. So that means there's a hekesh from him to his children. Mak is zaroi loy. Mahu pitay psula. Just like when he did the avera, his daughter will be psula. Af benoi, so too his son pitay psula. Freit the Gemara, once you're saying this hekesh of zaroi, that just like he becomes apostle, so too the children of his children become apostle. So bas pitay titzer. So now you've eliminated the whole gzera shava. And therefore say that the daughter of his daughter should also have a psul of chalolos, meaning if Kohen Gadol marries and have a daughter, she's a chalola. But if she marries a Yisrael, her daughter should also be a chalola. Dr. Gemara, no, imkein gzer shava maya hanilei. So we have a gzer shava telling us that it doesn't apply to females. Yav zori that says applies to everybody. So we use the gzer shava to say that it doesn't apply to the children of a female chalola. That's what we use it for. So therefore, halacha l'maisa, if someone has, if a kohen marries illegally, and therefore he has a son who's a cholol, that son becomes a cholol, and it goes on, because the psul goes on, just like Toma, it sticks to any male. However, it only goes to the first daughter. Why? Because we have a hekesh that says dafka males, but not females. So that will apply to the second generation female, but the first female born after a lineage of males will be usher because of Zara. Zok to Gemara weiter. Chalal shenasa bas Yisrael. A chalal that married a bas Yisrael, pitay psula. Meaning he's marrying a Yisrael, even though it's allowed, it will not kasher his zera. Hatana lereisha. Did we not learn? It wasn't just the very first statement of the Mishnah. Bas chalal zocher psulam nakuna lo'ila. So why would the Mishnah repeat itself? Zok to Gemara, I did it on a ratio Yisrael shnasa chalala. The Mishnah, when it started to elaborate and listing off the individual cases, it started off with Yisrael nasa chalala. So the Tana wanted to then repeat the parallel case with the opposite arrangement. So that's why the Tana repeats itself. Zok to Gemara, our Mishnah tells us that if a chalal marries a bas Yisrael, which is perfectly allowed to marry, the law is that the daughter still is a chalal, and that daughter will still be asher l'chum. Zok to Gemara, Masnisin Doloi Krab Destoy ben Yehuda. Our Mishnah is not consistent with Rabbi Destoy ben Yehuda, whose shita we had already several times in the last week. The Tanya Rabbi Destoy ben Yehuda Aimer, Kashem Shebnei Yisrael Mikveh Tahir Lechalalois. Just like if a chalala marries a regular Yisrael, their child is muter l'kahuna. Ach b'noi Yisrael Mikveh Tahir Lechalalim. So too, if a chalal marries a bas Yisrael, which is a completely condoned and perfectly kosher marriage, their daughter will be muter l'kahuna. My time with the Rabbi Destoy bar you. Why did Rabbi Destoy ben Yehuda say his halacha that once a chalal marries a bas Yisrael, the children are now all muter l'kahuna? Amakra, it says lo yechalel zayroi be'amov. Bi'am echad hu demech. When is there hilul for the children? That's only if it's be'am echad. As Rashi says, with the likes of be'amimov in their individual nations, only if the mother and the father are of the same breed. Mashma she'ein zari mechalal espitoi eleke shehu ve'ishtoi me'am echad sheshneim chalalim. If a chalal marries a chalala, that's when it will carry through to the next generation. Be'amov, meaning if him and his wife are both of the same lineage, they're both chalalim, then their child becomes a chal. Meaning, if one of the two spouses is not a chalal, they're merely a regular ben Yisrael or bas Yisrael, their child will not be a chal. Tana Rabbanan. And of course, our Mishnah disagrees with this limud, because our Mishnah holds that the daughter of a male chalal, in fact, is a chalala, although the daughter of a female chalala is not a chalala. And we learned that from the psukim of Zaroi and Lo Yitame Balbam. Tanu Rabbanan, Lo Yichalel Zaroi. He shouldn't be mechalel his zera. Ainly Ela Zaroi. I would only know that if a kohen lives with an almana, kohen gadol lives with an almana, his child, his zera, becomes pasul l'kuna. But how do we know that the almana herself, or if it's a grusha l'kohen hedjit, how do we know that she herself becomes a chalola? Lamai nafkamina, very simple. What if a kohen gadol married an almana? This almana is a 100% mutter to marry a kohen hedjit. So a kohen gadol marries an almana, and then the kohen gadol dies. So now she's still an almana. So out her herself, there would be no reason why she couldn't marry a kohen hedjit. She's merely an almana. But do you say that Vibal, she once upon a time lived with the kohen gadol, now she gets another psul called chalola. So the she herself become a chalola, he atzma minai. Zok gemar amrit kalvochem. There's a part of the svara to say, of course, that she does become psula l'kuhuna. Mazaroi shaloi over aravera. Madich, the child who did nothing wrong. Is it the child's fault that the parents did something wrong? Absolutely not. Nevertheless, mischalel, the zera is completely innocent and becomes also l'kuhuna. This woman, over avera, she herself was over the avera. Einoy din shamischalelas. Surely she herself should get tagged with the label of chalol.
So she can't even marry.
No, why? Yisrael doesn't want to marry a chalol. She can't marry a kohen hedjit.
Once you become a halal,
A chalol can marry Yisrael, of course.
your children are not.
A Yisrael shenos a chalola. Our Mishnah is black and white. His children are mutar l'kuna. Zok the Gemara. You can't bring me a raya because she did an avera. She becomes puzzle. Who atzmo yechiach? The kohen gadol himself, who lived with the almana, he also did an avera. Yet he still becomes a kohen gadol. The moment he gets rid of his wife, boom, he's back in business already. Who atzmo yechiach? So over avera, vein mischala. Zok you can't bring a raya from him. Malahu shekein ein mischala b'chol makom. You never find that a kohen should become permanent chalal. And Rashi elaborates. What does that mean? Malahu shein mischal b'chol makom. Afilu bal hashivcha bal hazoyna. Even if he was born on a shifcha or on a zoyna. In other words, even if he was born on a woman who's not only pasul kahuna, but even it's pasul for Yisrael. Sure, even that doesn't pasul it. So therefore, it's logical to say that if he marries only a woman who's also to a kohen, it won't permanently pasul it. Taimer be'isha shenivselas b'chol makom shimbal akuti chalal nesin mamzer psula, any psul that has bia with a woman permanently damages her. So therefore,
What happened?
is there tifas al avkav.
What happened?
She's also lakuna. She goes also lakuna, even if it's not a psul kuna, even if it's some other psul like a mamzer, right? So you see in general women who have bia with people that are also to her, it permanently damages her. Men don't become permanently damaged from having bia with someone who's usher to them. It's a man's world, right? So Zok the Gemara, Malahu shekein ein mischal b'chamakim, Tomer behi shemischalelos b'chamakim. So therefore, we have a good raya. We have a good raya that she herself should be possible. Madach, the child who didn't do an avera, calls again she who did an avera. And if you don't like this shot, I'll actually bring you a raya from a pasuk. Amar Kra lo yechalel zaroi. What does it mean, lo yechalel zaroi? It means lo yechulal zeh so yakasher v'nischalel. Zaroi, the children, from their very creation, they're mechulala because they were born be'isr. But we also want to include people who up until now were kosher and through this bia became possible. That could only possibly be referring to the woman herself. Because until this almana had bia with the kohen gadol, she was a kosher. Now she became a chula. So you shouldn't be mechalal a person who up until now was kosher. So therefore, included in the Yichalal is not only that the child born from such a union is a chalal, but the woman becomes psula through this bia. What was wrong with the first raya that the Gemara brought? And what was the Gemara's raya? The Gemara raya madach, the child who did no avera is becoming a chalal. Surely the woman who did avera. What was wrong with that raya? Mam nafshachleimer. You could slug up that kabel chaymer. Mal zaroi she can yitzirase ba'avera. Yes, she has a chesaron. She has a chesaron that she did an avera. But the zera, its whole creation was ba'avera. Her creation was beheter. So you shouldn't be able to bring a raya that just because the zera is psula, she's psula. Therefore, the Gemara brings the plan B. Amar kalo yechalal. We learn from that lo yuchulal zeh shal yikasher v'nischala. So included in lo yichal zara is surely the child is a chalal, but the Torah is also signaling to us that there's someone who was mutter until now who became a chalal through this bia, meaning the perpetrator herself. Tanu Rabbanim. What is a chalala? Any person that's born from psulim. What exactly is meant by this psulim? Ilema psulim loy. If you're telling me if a man marries someone who's not allowed to marry, automatically he's trulin or psulim, that's not true. If someone is machshir, which we know is asur b'lav, he's not allowed to marry your wife back if she in between has married somebody else. The psulaloi, this woman is psulaloi. But what if he marries her and he's over the lav and he has children? Her children are kosher. How do we know her children are kosher? Because the Torah states so almost explicitly. It says Ta'eva he Ta'eva. She is the Ta'eva by going back to her original husband. But if her children are born from this second marriage, in fact, they would not be Ta'eva. So you can't tell me that anyone who marries a woman who's puzzle to him, even if it's not a psul kahuna, it's going to create a halal. Because we see feferish a case where that doesn't happen. So I'm going to read the Hakikam. This is what it means. What is a chalala? That's only if a child was born from an Isser. That's only an Isser kahuna. A kohen marries a woman who's prohibited only to a kohen, that union will create a chalal. Zokt Gemara, nolda in, loy nolda loy. Are you telling me, dafka, the child born from such a union becomes usher, but if it's not a child who was born from this, it wouldn't be usher? In other words, the perpetrator herself would not become usher because she wasn't born from Isser. She did the Isser. Hare Almana, Ugrusha, Zoina, the Loy Nolda, they were not born by Isser. They're perfectly sherim, but the Kahava Chalala, we've shown that they become a Chalala. They become a Chalala because of their Avera. So once again, what does it mean? Amar Rabba Hachika Amar. Ezu Chalala Muskeres. Who is the Chalala that's mentioned beferish in the Torah that we don't need a drasha and a drei to learn it? Because how do we know that the woman herself becomes a Chalala? We had a drasha and a drei. It says Chalal to drei. That person who until now was kosher and became a Chalal, that also includes the mother herself. So that was with a drei. We needed a drei to get that. But we're talking about who is the textbook Chalala that the Torah is directly talking about without us making a drasha. Ezu Chalal Muskeres. Shaloi hoyol ashasa kosher kalal, who never had a shasa kosher, kol shalnolda min psul kahuna, a child that was born from a union between a kohen and someone who he was not allowed to marry. Frekmar my muskeres. I've already elaborated what muskeres means, but I got it from the Gemara. My muskeres. What is the definition of muskeres? The textbook case. Omer Yitzchak bar Avin hakikamer ezi chalola sheikra midivra Torah, which is the pasuk of pshat, the taich of the pasuk. When you're reading the pasuk, who is the pasuk referring to? We don't have to darshan a word on the pasuk to say it also includes the perpetrator herself. That's called shonoldim in psulei kahuna. That's really lo yechal zayroi. The textbook case that's mephorushly mentioned in the Torah is a child born out of a non-sanctioned union. Tanu Rabbanan. Almana. What if a woman is a triple almana? And we're going to see the different cases, but for now, let's just say that she married 3 men, and they all died. She's a shtigl katlanis already, but is she allowed to marry a kohen gadol? The halach is einei chayiv el achas. He's only mechuyev one set of malchus. Grusha. Einei chayiv el achas. Once again, if it's a kohen hedid or a kohen gadol married her, there's only one chayiv. How about if she became an almana, and then she remarried, and then she became a grusha, and then she remarried, and she became a halala because she married, let's say, a kohen. So now she got an additional psul of halala, and then she divorced a kohen, and then she married a mamzer, and she became a zayin. Now this woman, when they read her a shidduch, she have alamailis habach in the shidduch. So the halach is bizman shem keseder, if her marriages to these 4 people were in order as listed, almana grusha, halala, and then zayna, all of the 4 psulim are upon her, and therefore you will get 4 malchus for having bia with this woman. But what happens? First, she was inside. First, she lived with her mamzer. Then, when it's challah, then she illegally lived with a kohen. Then she became a mugureshes, and then she became an almana. Then einoi chayev alachas. Then she'll only be mechuyev 1 malchus. So you see already, this has to do with isur chalal isur. When are all 4 isurim chal on her, and when are they not? Amar Mar. Now we're going to delve down and drill down into this price. Almana, almana, almana einoi chayev alachas. Frek mar hay almana hechidam. How did you have a triple almana? Ilema sheba almanus Ruvain, almanus Shimon, almanus Levi. He was born 3 separate women, and each of these women were almanas. Why would the Kohen Gadol only be mechuyev once? He did 3 separate isurim. These are 3 separate women that each have an isur almana. These are 3 lavin. Why in the world would you say einoi chayev elachas? Ella, what it must mean, sheba almana achas shalosh biyos. There was 1 almana, and he had 3 beers with him. Correct the Gemara, it's not so pashut that he only gets 1 set of malchus. Hechidami. Idaloi asrubei. If they didn't warn him in between the beers, then we look at it like 1 hella. She did einoi chayev elachas. Elo de asrubei akol chada v'chada. If before each bia the Edom warned them, you may not have this bia, otherwise you will get malchus. Then amai einoi chayev elachas. Why do we say nechayev alachas? He should be mechayev for each time, just as if it was a nazir being over an aver of drinking wine. But now nazir shoyishoy yain kolayim kulay ain't nechayev alachas because it's 1 helam, it's 1 lapse of judgment. But amrulai al tishta, if before each revius that he drank, he was told don't drink, nevertheless he drinks. And I should correct myself. I don't think he has to drink a revius to be mechuyev. So I don't remember from Masechtas Nazir, but if they warned him before each violation of Tishtal Tishta, and he drinks anyway in violation of their hasra, then so too a kohen who has multiple beers with an almana, if he's warned each time, he should get 3 malchus. So what is the case where our brisa told us almana, almana, almana? There's only 1 malchus. You have this woman who's a katlanis. She already married 3 men and became widowed from 3 men. There, if a kohen gadol has beer with this 1 woman, he will only get 1 malchus. Lamai says she has 3 different labels of almana, so maybe he should get 3 malchus. It has to be 3 separate beers with 3 separate women in order for him to get 3 malchus. Beautiful. Next, let's look at the next case in the Mishnah, in the Brisa. Almana ugrusha v'chalol zoin. This woman has every mila on her resume. The halach is the kohen gadol who has relations with her gets 4 malchus. Hi tana ma'ikasov. What is this tana hold? Ikasover isur chalal isur. If this tana holds that 1 isur is chal on another isur, ibchanami. What's the difference in what order these things occur to her? Regardless, there's 4 independent isurim upon this woman, and therefore he should get 4 malchus no matter what the order was. Because of her ein isur chalal isur, and if this tana holds ein isur chalal isur, then al fidu keseder as an amila. Even if it was done in disorder, ein isur chalal isur. Amar Rava zokt Rava high tana isur chalal isur less. Regular isur chalal isur, this tana does not hold up. But isur moisef isle. If each isur encompasses more people, asers more people than the original isur, that in fact we do hold isur chalal isur. So let's go through the chesh. Almana asur l'kohen gadol. She first became an almana, which only prohibits her from having relations with the kohen gadol. V'shari l'kohen hedid, but she's allowed to be married to a kohen hedid. Then she became a grusha. Why is the isur grusha chal upon the isur almana? Because migudi toisav lo isur l'gabe kohen hedid. Since now she's also going to become also to the kohen hedid, itoisav lo isur l'gabe kohen gadol. The isur of grusha will also be chal upon the isur of almana, even for the kohen gadol. But v'adayin shari l'meichal b'truma. A woman who becomes a grusha, if she's a bas kohen herself, she's allowed to eat truma. She becomes a chalola, havala chalola, migudi toisiv isur l'meichal b'truma. Since now this name chalola, this label chalola, now makes her asher to eat truma, so it also is chal l'gabe its other impacts. Itoisiv isur l'gabe kohen gadol. El zoyna, if she becomes a zoyna afterwards, my isur moisav is what other prohibition, what other restriction does she have now that she became a Zoina? There is none. So we have a huge Chiddush here. Amar Rav Chana bar Katina, a massive Chiddush. Hoilu Shneim's Nus Poisel be Yisrael. Since the Shem's Nus Pasels even be Yisrael, we consider that enough that Israel will be Chal on the coin as well. Rashi elaborates a little bit. Hoilu Shneim's Nus Poisel out be Yisrael. Kagoin im Zinsa Tachtov. If she was Mazana, Neseres al Baila. Any woman who's Mazana when she's married, she becomes Usher to her husband. Hakanami, Avagab Dai's Nus, Lav Tachas Bailu, even though this woman's Nus was not Tachas Baila, Miu Shem's Nus, Ashkum Bei Moisabama. You find sometimes that the Shem's Nus will answer her even to her husband. Therefore, it will be considered an Isur Moisav, and it'll be Chal on the previous Isurim of Almana, Rusha, and Chalala, and therefore the coin gets 4 months. Tani Tana Kamed Rav Sheshes. I have too much to go. Let me go back there. We'll talk later. Tani Tana Kamed Rav Sheshes. Kol Shehu B'Yikach. It says Almana Gerusha v'Chalala Zonis Elo Lo Yikach Kiyim B'Sula Me'amav Yikach Isha. So Kol Shehu B'Yikach. Any woman who he's allowed to marry, and there's no other Isurim for him to marry her, Hareyu B'Lo Yikach. She will also be prohibited to him if she becomes an Almana, if she becomes a Gerusha, if she becomes a Chalala Zoin. But let's say there's a woman he can't marry because it's his sister or it's his wife's sister. What if there's other reasons why this kohen can't marry her that have nothing to do with the kuna? So it teaches us prat l'kohen gadol shabal achosh almana. If the kohen gadol has a sister who's an almana, he won't get malchus for the almana because he couldn't marry this woman anyway because this woman is his sister. Amr lei. So he told him. So Rabbi Chana bar Katina said this. I'm sorry, Reb Sheshes said it. So they told Reb Sheshes, the Amr Lachmani. Who told you this halacha? It must be Reb Shimoni. The Amr ain't Isser Chal al Isser. The only reason why the Isser of the Almana will not be Chal on the sister must be because he doesn't hold Isser Chal al Isser. The Tanya Reb Shimon Omer, Ha'echel Nevela b'Yom Kippurim. So someone ate Nevela b'Yom Kippurim. So this meat was already also before Yom Kippurim. It was already also b'Torah Nevela. So Yom Kippur cannot be Chal now upon this Isser Nevela, butter. That's what it must be going according to. Ein Yisur Chal Isser, and therefore the Isser Almana will not be Chal on the Isser Achayis. The Rabbanon, because if you hold like Rabbanon, how many Isser Chal Isser? The Rabbanon said Isser Chal Isser, so therefore this Almana should be Chal on the Isser of Achayis. Zokimur no. Afilu Tem Rabbanon. Even if you want to say Reb Shesh's Tana is consistent with the Rabbanon who hold Isser Chal al Isser. Kiyami Rabban Isser Chal Lisser. Where do the Rabban say Isser Chal Lisser? Hanimili Isser Chamar Lisser Kal. Yom Kippur, which comes with the Chiv Koris, will be Chal on the Isser Nevela. That's only an Isser Lav. Aval Isser Kal, like the Isser Almana LaKohen Gadol, a Lisser Chamar to be Chal on the Isser B'Choytoi Loi Chayil. So therefore, even if you hold Yom Kippur is Chal on the Vela, you don't necessarily hold that Almana is Chal on his sister. Ikadamri Hamani Rabbanani. There are those who say that this is the Rabbanan. The Amri Isser Chal Lisser. The Chiyami Rabbanon Isser Chal Lisser. Where do the Rabbanon say Isser Chal Lisser? Hanimili Isser Chamar Lisser Kal. Lisser Kal Lisser Chamar Loi Chayil. The Rab Shimon, because if it's going according to Rab Shimon, Hashta Isser Chamar Lisser Kal Loi Chayil. Rab Shimon says that an Isser Chamar is not Chal on an Isser Chamar is not Chal on an Isser Kal. Isser Kal Lisser Chamar Miboy. Surely an Isser Kal like Almona will not be Chal on the Isser Chamar of Achoisa. No, maybe you need to tell us the Chiddush, because maybe even though Isser Kahuna is in Isser Kal, but it's Isser Kahuna Sheribo ben Akosiv Mitzvah Shiseres. There is something more powerful about Isser Kahuna, even though it's only an Isser Lav. Maybe it should be Chal on the Isser Achoisoi. Kamash Malon the Brisa that even Rab Shimon holds that this would know. Omer Le Rav Papa LaBaye. Rav Papa told Abaye, Yisrael Abal Achoisoi. If a Yisrael is born his sister, Zoyna Mashvila, he makes her into a Zoyna. But Chalala Mashvila Oiloi Mashvila. Does he also make her into a Chalala? So Rashi says, Pshita Oiloi de Zoyna Mashvila. Of course he makes her into a Zoyna. The Nevelas, the Nivela Bilas Puzzle. Therefore she's a surah to the Kohen also Zoyna. The question is she also a Chalala? What's enough, Kamina? If he would get 2 malchus, one for living with a Zoyna and one for living with a Chalala. What is the law? Mir Mina Kavachomer, Mechayvi Lavan have a Chalala. If Chayvi Lavan make her into a Chalala. Mechayvi increases like Kolshagain, Idilma ain't Chalala Elami Isakun. Maybe the only way to make a Chalala if the Bia was a Bia of Isha Lakuna. Amarle ain't Chalala Elami Isakuna Bopad. You can only become a Chalala if it's an Isakuna. Amar Rabba, we know Hamilton, Amar Rabbanon in Chalola El Nisakuna. How do you know that you only become a Chalola from a Nisakuna? Titania. Lo Yomer Grusha B'Koyin Gadol. Why did it have to say by Koyin Gadol? Amana Grusha B'Chalola Zonis El Ikach. We already have a different pasuk that tells us that a Koyin Hedjit may not marry a Grusha. V'Teisi B'Kavol Chayim Mikoyin Hedjit. V'Anamina Hachel LaKoyin Hedjit Asura. If a Grusha is usher to a Koyin Hedjit, LaKoyin Gadol Miboy. Surely the Grusha is usher to a Koyin Gadol. Why do I need a pasuk specifically by a Kohen Gadol to tell us that the Grusha is not allowed to marry the Kohen Gadol? Lama Nemra, to tell us, Keshem Shechaluka, Grusha, Mizoina, Chalola B'Kohen Hedjit, Kach Haluka B'Kohen Gadol. What does that mean? Keshem Shechaluka. So Rashi says, Keshem Shechaluka, Grusha, Mizoina, Chalola. Hamur Hetzel Kohen Hedjit. So Yichid Loi Lav La'at. There's a special lav. It says you shouldn't marry a Grusha, you shouldn't marry a Zoin, you shouldn't marry a Chalola. By Kohen Gadol, it's all wrapped together, right? Almana, Gerusha, V'Chalola, Zoina, as Elo Yikach. It's one lav that wraps them all together. By the Kohen Hedjit, each one is itemized with a lav. So Nacham Hamur says Kohen Hedjit, Sheyichad Lav La'atma V'Isha Grusha Me'Isha Lo Yikachu. There's a pasuk that says Beferish addresses specifically a Grusha by the Kohen Hedjit that he's not allowed to marry. The Lamdacha to teach you She'im Zoina V'Chalola U'Grusha. If she's all three, Loika Allah Af Mishum Grusha. He gets a separate set of malchus because she's a grusha. So therefore, kach haluka b'kohen gadol. Even though almana grusha v'chalol zoina are wrapped into one lav, grusha b'bal you see by kohen hedjit. Grusha has its own lav. So too by kohen gadol, grusha gets its own lav, and he gets petch. Fact Gemara pshita migra gora. I don't need a kavachaymer. A kohen gadol is also a kohen hedjit, right? So al kohen hedjit should get it. I don't need a couple of over. Ela kashem shechaluka grusha bizoina v'chalola v'kohen hedjit. Just like a grusha gets its own malchus by kohen hedjit, kach almana chaluka megrusha v'chalola zoina v'kohen gadol. We learn similarly all of the isurim mentioned by the kohen gadol, even though they're all included in one lav, each one is its own lav. That's why it says almana. All of them. Why does it say chalola? Almana grusha v'chalola zoina. So why did the list of chalola by the kohen gadol if we already know that a chalola is also to a kohen hedjit? Lama nemra teaches you that ain't chalola elami isser kahuna. We learn from chalola that you only become a chalola from isser kahuna, like we said a moment ago. Not if someone is bala chaysai, that would not make her into chalola. Zoina lama nemra. Why did the Torah repeat zoina as well by kohen gadol? Nemra kan zoina. V'nemer la'alon zoyin. Makan zaray chulin, af la'alon zaray chulin. What does that mean? So Rashi, it says by the kohen gadol zoyna, and it says by the kohen hedjit. Makan the kohen gadol zaray chulin. Yechsev lo yichalel. There's no pasuk that says beferish that the iser of a kohen to one of the isurei kahuna makes the child into halal. It just says you're not allowed to do it. By the kohen gadol says lo yichalel zaray. So therefore, we need the pasuk. We need the extra zoina by kohen gadol to teach us halacha that just like all of these isurim, all of these bias asuras produce children that are halalim, so too by the kohen hedjit, any bias asura that the kohen hedjit does produces a child who's going to be a halal. Okay, we'll stop here. It's already quite late. We'll be back to the show tomorrow.
First of all, what's the difference?
Once again, Shkoyach Bensi for sponsoring today's broadcast. Again, Le'ilul Nishmas, the Buffalo Rebbe. I forgot his name, and Isha Rachel Bas Lovon and Rabbi Elio Yosef and Rabbi Gedalia Aaron. Shuvas on Aliyah.
Yosef and Gedalia.
Yes, the Buffalo Rebbe. Yeah, it was Yutzah. It was his Yutzah yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had 8 guests for Shabbos.
They go.
It's a-
The bus.